Bizarro Supergirl, The Death of the Mary Sue. How are you doing? My name is Kendall Bryan Hunter. I am author of this book, Consider My Servant Job. It's a religious book about the experience of suffering. Give my book a look, especially if you have to suffer through the Supergirl movie. They'll help you cleanse yourself. And this is the Eyes of Faith podcast, where I talk about things and events and culture and whatever interests me through the perspective of the eyes of faith. And you are just absolutely looking good today, 3 steps above average. So first of all, let me do some housekeeping stuff. I've been having problems with coughing. I'm here in Utah where we've been having these wildfires and high pollen plus wildfire. I'm going to see the doctor this Tuesday. If you need help, sometimes it's time to get it. If something isn't getting worse, but it's not getting better, time to see the doctor. The second thing, yes, I do have this cold sore on my lip. I was going to put a Band-Aid on it, but one of the approaches I have with this podcast, this broadcast, whatever you want to call it, is just to be honest with you. So, yeah, I'm having a cold sore. I'm not doing this. I'm not using a filter. I want to be transparent with you. I don't have commercials, no theme songs, just you, me, and the truth. And let's talk about things. This disaster, that Supergirl, Bizarro Supergirl, and the death of the Mary Sue character. So first of all, this is not an ugly picture of Millie Alcott. This is Bizarro Supergirl. Now, my nerd factor. On a scale of 1 to 5, I'm about a 2. I do own a copy of the Great Superman Encyclopedia book. I'm above a casual observer, but I'm not like one of these crazy people who's into all the lore. I am there to enjoy it. I remember as a little kid, my dad took me to see the Christopher Reeve Superman. We didn't see the second one, and which is sort of good because you have the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which took a while to get released. But I have paid attention to it. I'm a fan of George Reeves, of the Max Fleischer version, more of the Golden Age, Silver Age Superman, not these weird incarnations, Death of Superman. So there you go. But Bizarro Supergirl. Just a disclaimer. First of all, I do own stock in. Well, first let me guess. I haven't seen the movie. I own stock in these companies, and the best thing I can do to show my distaste and anger with these companies is not to see the movie, so it's one less ticket. I've been watching a lot of the reviews, and they've been all saying the same thing, so that must be something. But I haven't seen it. I own stock in Warner Brothers Paramount Skydance, this hyper merger. Yeah, I was for it, but it's because I bought stock in it. One, I can vote with the board meeting, so if you do stinky stuff that I don't like, I can vote against you. But if I have faith in the Loony Toons brand, the Babylon 5 franchise, the DC properties. I really like the Warner Brothers vault, but I do have a financial interest in their success and lose money when they fail. But yeah, there's no point in seeing it. And every review I've been watching has said the same thing. It would have been a waste of time and money. Think about the poor people you could have fed with that money you spent watching a garbage movie. Another thing to think about too, before I get into the death of the Mary Sue, this Bizarro Supergirl. You remember Bizarro? He's a character in the Superman comics. He's an imperfect clone or copy of Superman. He has very angular features, low intelligence. He's the opposite. Jerry Seinfeld used to talk about this on his show Bizarro World. And this is Bizarro Supergirl. This isn't the Supergirl that you grew up loving. This is the Bizarro version of her. But it's interesting. We're at a point where the people criticizing and even ridiculing the movies is more entertaining than the movies themselves. You sit there and watching these people. It's Honest Trailers, Pitch Meeting, Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, David Cullen, Snarky J, Real Fake Wizard. It's interesting, Real Fake Wizard, he's a little bit more overt about his Christianity, which I find refreshing. Then I was watching this new gal. Her name is Jester Bell, or so it's like a girl boss type thing. These people are a lot more interesting than these movies you watch. So, getting into this movie, and I've heard that you see the trailers, you see it all. This is a drunk, alcoholic, potty mouth superhero, heroine. Maybe super heroine is the correct term if you catch my drift. She's dressed up in the Superman costume, but she's clearly not worthy of it. I have a niece who's a missionary for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she's in New Zealand. I just think, okay, what would happen if she were to go see this movie? What role model as a heroic woman is being modeled for my niece who's on a mission right now? You have a postmodern hedonistic, you can barely call it, use the term woman in this case, just rampaging around the galaxy. This is clearly cultural sludge. There's a saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you realize that people have different taste. But some people just have bad taste or no taste at all. I'm one of them. I got this football jersey on. I don't even have enough sense to cover up my cold sore. I don't care. Hopefully this conversation we're having, this dialogue about the cultural decay is, you can see past it. Cultural sludge. The philosopher Ayn Rand talked about it in her book, The Romantic Manifesto, and if you're wrenching, just having these dry heaves by watching this movie, get a copy of that book, The Romantic Manifesto, give it a read. There's this other one, it's a reading sample, more of a philosophic one, called Philosophies of Art and Beauty. So it has this cover of this Greek head, and there's a rainbow over it, so you can trick your friends you're celebrating Pride Month if you're not into that. Of course, the standard work at all by Michael Medved, Hollywood versus America. Completely out of date with the instances of movie, but he really saw it early on. In fact, I think because of that book, they made him the parade marshal in the Provo 4th of July parade one year. So I actually saw him zip by really quickly. That's as close as I got to him. There's nothing appealing about this movie. By spending your money to watch this actress dressed up in a heroic costume, drunk, clubbing, narcissistic, selfish, nihilistic, self-destructive. Apparently Superman is doing some interventions with his cousin, which that's probably the highlight of the movie, is when Kal-El, use the Kryptonian names, is doing some interventions with his cousins. That's probably the most heroic thing in the movie. It's like, you need help, and you're not in a good place. Which is interesting. That's how you could save this story, is have Kara work through with Kal-El, and Kara work through an intervention where she goes into detox. But there's this term, Mary Sue, and what a Mary Sue character is when people write fan fiction or even normal fiction, a Mary Sue, it's a derogatory term for a female character who's just absolutely perfect in every way. She's intelligent, she's smarter than the boys, top of her class, can do anything and everything, shapely figure, and for some reason she'll have lavender eyes. And this type of character is very boring. There's no conflict, there's no growth, nothing you can relate to. And honestly, it's psychological therapy writing. I was bullied as a kid, or I feel inadequate, so I'm going to create this imaginary character of myself, and boom, everything will be perfect in this fantasy world. Like I said, it's therapeutic writing rather than storytelling. And it's interesting because you see that with some strains of feminism, where you have toxic masculinity, so by default, and this is a false default, women are better. And we want to be grateful for women, and these celebrations on Mother's Day are appropriate. International Day of the Woman if you're a good communist and you don't know better. But when you see the original ones, people were heroic, but not omnipotent and omniscient. I think about Wonder Woman with Linda Carter, a little bit with a Gal Gadot, that she's not exactly perfect. Electro Woman and Dyna Girl, vague memories of that as a kid, and a little bit better memories of Isis. And I remember a woman commenting to me when she was a little, she'd watched Filmation's Isis, and she found it empowering and helpful. So that, I can stand by that. I'm going to do a little bit of adjusting. Did you hear that drop? So, that. Think about Mary Marvel. If you're into the Shazam franchise or the real Captain Marvel, even as a kid on the Filmation. See, I do this low key. Okay, I'm getting my. I hope this silly stuff is actually entertaining. So I'm saying this is my back scratch, and what I'm doing is I have this DVD to adjust my tablet. I think just a chance. This is home improvement for right in the middle online real stuff. I don't care because I hope this is you're getting a kick out of this. Someone who could probably be doing better with this podcast. You have Mary Marvel. That's the female equivalent of Captain Marvel or Shazam. The Shazam family, the Bat family. Princess Leia, Mrs. Leia, from episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever CGI the estate of Carrie Fisher will allow, name, image, and likeness. But she starts out being sort of the damsel not in distress, which is picked up by Joss Whedon in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The damsel not in distress thing. That's where you see part of the Mary Sue, where she's not dependent upon Galahad. But the character gets softened when she starts out. It's her hairstyle, the space buns, the sweet rolls on the side of her head, and then by the time she's on the sanctuary moon of Endor, finally, Princess Leia puts her hair down and becomes vulnerable and realizes, okay, look, I don't have this all. I need to rely upon these other people, not to be a woman, to be affectionate to her family, to Luke, hugging Luke, kissing Han Solo. She becomes a whole person because she's a professional woman, but she needs romance and family in her life, and that was what was lacking with it. And that's the progress with her, and that's a laudable message. But the Mary Sue's is just too perfect, and you saw this with Rey. You have Kylo Ren, who can stop a blaster bolt midair, do other things, and he still has enough control over the Force where the blaster's just sitting there, that bolt's just sitting there, and he's doing other things, and finally it continues its flight. Rey, with zero training, somehow learns how to fly the Millennium Falcon, somehow best Kylo Ren in the Knights of Ren, who did a lot of training. And it's just silly, and they just don't want you to think about it. They just want this to be an emotional stimulus response thing to look at it. And it gives the thing is, it's bad messaging for women that you don't have to train, as opposed to Joan of Arc, who had to do some training and learn some skills before she went into battle. But Rey just walks in there and she can do it automatically. Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel. See, that's the quest. Is they didn't have rights to Phoenix from the X-Men, so they wanted to have a Phoenix character. So it was toss-up between the Scarlet Witch or Captain Marvel, the other Captain Marvel, where someone just has all these superpowers. And it was fun because it's a bit of a letdown when you watch the MCU as they introduced Captain Marvel. That Captain Marvel should have been the Scarlet Witch movie. Not Scarlet Witch, but the Black Widow, excuse me. I leave my mistakes in here because I want to be honest with you. Yeah, I do make mistakes, and at least you can trust me to be honest about myself. So they had the Black Widow movie, and Captain Marvel movie should have been swapped. It would have been a more powerful sacrifice when Black Widow died. But you threw Mrs. Marvel on there, and then she doesn't really do anything; just kind of shows up as needed. Deus Ex Machina. And they have the Scarlet Witch. You saw Mary Sue with a. Ironically, Mary Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four movie, the updated one with Emily Blunt, or just because she's a mother and her child's in danger, she can create this force field that can stop Galactus. Now, admittedly, it's a weakened Galactus, but because she's a woman and she loves her baby, she can just overpower him, and that's bad writing. Maybe some people need the flattery, but that's not healthy. You as a human being said, okay, look, we're not going to flatter you. That sends a bad message. I saw that with, remember with Superman Returns, is that you had the son of Lois Lane and Kal-El, and have him there with the asthmatic inhaler, but suddenly he's able to push a piano. And it's like, look, I had asthma as a kid, and I don't think that's a good message. The good message, okay, let's learn how to work around this problem and still be a functional human being. Mary Sue again. But with this one, they inverted the Mary Sue trope. So it's an anti-Mary Sue, or negative Mary Sue, or Bizarro Mary Sue. Bizarro Planet Bizarro. And remember, this is not ugly picture. This is Bizarro. This is Bizarro Supergirl. So being absolutely perfect, she's just absolutely raunchy, absolutely trashy, alcoholic, antisocial, perfect, drunk, clubbing, no healthy relationships for a dog, and the dog, because the dog doesn't know any better. And the only reason is that a dog would put up with her toxic lifestyle choices. This is a woman who's just not worthy of the costume, and she's presented as the heroine of her own movie. Once again, not hero, heroine. The choice of words intentional. So the message of this movie is now, not only are men toxic, now women are toxic, everyone's toxic. There's no hope because our superheroes are now bizarros, where everything's in bizarro world right now. That's a bad message. There's no one to look up to. Like I said, apparently from the reviews, the only shining moment is Kal-El reaching out to his cousin to do an intervention, trying to help her. Other than that, it's just, you just feel slimy when you start thinking about what this movie's about. And like I said, I didn't see it, but the reviews are universal. And as a shareholder in Warner Brothers, I find this unacceptable. Well, that's a nice 17-minute rant about a movie I didn't see. Let's go to the news blips. My lungs are recovering. Let's keep this quick. There's an earthquake in Venezuela, and Trump sends aid. But is the left going to acknowledge that? I went to Mark Hamill's page on Blue Sky, and he could have done something like this. This is a decent scene to do. I disagree. What he said about Episode 8, the Star Wars movie that really doesn't exist. He said, I disagree with Rian Johnson's approach, but I have to implement it. He could have said, I disagree with Donald Trump, but this is the good call, sending this aid to Venezuela. He didn't post any of that on his social media site on Blue Sky. That was a letdown. He had a chance to be a bridge builder. Will I forgive him? I understand you got to have a really weird... Being in Star Wars, that's giving you a really weird life where you have money, fame, but that does negative things to you. And is the science on the left part of the problem of not being honest about things? Another news blip. Thank you, Nick Shirley. 455 people charged for alleged $6.5 billion healthcare fraud. That's why we have deficit spending and a national debt. $6.5 billion. Imagine if we eliminated 50% of that, what that would do to the national debt and the deficit spending. It's mercy robbing justice. These welfare magnets. It's destroy. It's a bit like a. I hate to use the term parasite because the people committing their fraud, their neighbors, they may not know better. They may be in a situation where they think this is the best thing to do, but it's killing the tree. Think about the Book of Mormon, the allegory of the olive tree. You start grafting in too many branches, it kills the tree. Too many people dependent upon government collapses the system because it can't hold up. You left a country where they did this, and you're bringing the same model to this country, and it's going to have the same effect. We love all people, but there has to be some sanity to the immigration system. It's not quotas, not this, not that, just some common sense and sanity to what's going on because the system's collapsing. Okay, 19, 40 minutes and 49 seconds. America 250. That's next week, 168 hours away. 160, okay, you got 7 days to put the icing on the cake on this one. What are you doing? What's going to be different? What's going to be special? What memories are you going to leave to your family and your future generations? Are you going to the family search site? Some of these genealogical sites and telling a story about what it was like 50 years ago with the bicentennial. I remember that. Are you doing something? What's going to be different? What's going to be spectacular in 1 week's time when we hit July 4th, 250 years? You have the power in it to make it something spectacular and create a memory. Maybe you're poor and it's just microwave hot dogs. But there's going to be free parades somewhere. There's some programs you can watch, books to read, a word to speak to someone. Rethink your politics, rethink your political party. Where are you getting it wrong? Where are you getting it right? But do something. It's there for you. Going from Bizarro Supergirl. Whoosh, it's Bizarro Supergirl. Remember, this is not an ugly picture of Millie Alcott. This is Bizarro Supergirl. Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, reimagined. So season 1, episode 6 is called Litmus Test, or Litmus. So it starts out where you have both Commander Adama and Colonel Tyre are off the bridge at the same time, and they just happen to be in the same location where you have an SVS go off. And you see both of them at sickbay at the same time. Wrong. Someone has to be on the bridge at all times. In fact, the USS Hornet, the aircraft carrier that picked up the Apollo 11 astronauts, on the bridge, there's a room, kind of like Picard's ready room. The reason why you have a room like that on the bridge is because during a state of war, sometimes the captain doesn't leave the bridge. He sleeps on there. There's a small bedroom, a little office on the USS Hornet where the captain could sleep in times of war just so he could get him so he could make the decisions. You'd never have both of those. You'd have someone on the bridge watching in the state of war. And then you have them conveniently together, conveniently off the bridge, conveniently at the same time, where the SVS goes off. Let me say this. Some of the old school writers, the Atom Punk, the classics, 1940s, 50s, 60s, Robert Heinlein, Rod Serling, The Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Star Trek TOS. The writers served in World War II. Rod Serling was a paratrooper. Gene Roddenberry was a pilot in World War II, I believe. I think he crashed in Africa once, if I remember correctly. So they had a strong sense of how a military would work. I mean, not only the Army, but the ones that served in the Navy, and that would help them. You understand is that, okay, you always have a captain on the bridge, or someone has, or when the captain's off, you have the executive officer. They may rotate shifts, but you always have someone who's in charge and can get to the bridge quickly. The military protocol. It was believable. For example, when you watch Star Trek 2, you notice how Kirk constantly making log entries or entering something into the log. Then you have the Kelvin Star Trek, where you have the captain of the Kelvin just turns to George Cook and says, okay, you're the new captain. And that's the problem of doing something that's emotionally impactful at the sacrifice of logical, narrative logic and accuracy. Because the captain would have to enter this into the log, okay, transferring and you could do it another way, is that you can have the captain, he's talking to his comm badge and doing the log entry, and he looks at him and says, okay, transferring command over to George Kirk to take over. And it's missing that, so it just feels inaccurate, and it's something that bothers you. One thing my dad would always complain about is he's a private pilot, and he always laughed at the USS Enterprise would have these running lights in outer space. One of my concerns is air traffic control. And that's the thing I like about Battlestar Galactica is they're very good about the air traffic control. Viper, whatever, coming in for the landing and making sure there's a controlled space around the Battlestar. Then you have a scene with President Roslin, and then you have this press corps. Now, stop and think about this. You have this ragtag fleet, all these ships, they're refugees, but they have a press corps and a press office and press statements. Looks good, looks authentic, and this is a metaphor post 9/11. I mean, 3 years after 9/11 happened, and that's crucial to understanding the series and their approach to things. It did bring back memories and feelings, but it'll just look silly. Having a press conference, having a presser, all these news sources. Why aren't the people more emaciated? Let's see. The dress side, they dress shabby. Early on, they said, okay, the change of clothes. They wouldn't have enough change of clothes because this was a surprise attack, 9/11 Pearl Harbor type thing. Well, you have the Inquisitor or the Inquisitrix, and the one doing the investigation of the S-Vest. And I saw it was female. I thought, wow, the Inquisitrix is female. We already know how this is going to end up. Asking the tough questions, and you have this episode that's a generic courtroom drama. And it's interesting to ask, okay, where is this person? Where is this person? Like, no, during a state of war, state of emergency, there would be a lot more controls and observations that when people come and go on the ship. It was a bit sloppy. It felt like I was watching a detective show like Magnum P.I. or Columbo, Just One More Thing. They had the panel, like, who are these people? Where do they come from? They're just a bunch of generic faces like the press corps. And why were they dressed nicely, and why aren't they emaciated? Now, they did this in the original series. They had a ship called the Rising Star, and that's where the Council of the 12 met. But they had the upper deck, and this is a compliment to Colonial One. The president's ship is at the upper deck, is where they're just living in luxury, and below deck, you had all the refugees starving. It was Sire Yuri was his name, and Cyrus, and they had him enter plane and say, hey, wait a minute, look, they got people downstairs, and you're still luxuriating here. There'd be some more hunger, starvation, emaciation, dehydration. People go into conniptions fits because they have PTSD. Speaking of that, this is something that a bit bothered me. So they flip to the scene of Caprica, and this sometimes it feels like it's a little bit filler material. We have the people, the one pilot left behind, and you have with the Cylon Boomer, the other Cylon Boomer. So you have Boomer Prime that's on the ship, and then Boomer number 2, which is back on Caprica. They have a scene where 6 of 12, the Caprica 6, the blonde Cylon who's behind there, goes. They start kicking her and doing violence on Boomer, and you'll have that line, "You don't want to see me when I'm angry." It was interesting because you have the aggressive foreplay, the aggressive kissing between Boomer and Tyrol or T-Roll in the earlier scene, and this one they're going to that, and then they're going to violence. That's a red flag if watching a lot of the sex and violence BDS&M movie. Stargate SG-1, I think it was Dean Anderson made the good call about keeping this family friendly. This one they're doing it a little bit more adult oriented, and that ought to give you pause, seeing that violence and this aggressive romance. Just like watching two pucker fishes going on each other, two monkeys. But the sex and the violence against the lead female Asian, and how much does this carry over from anime? You remember that movie came out about 2 years ago called Heretic, had Hugh Grant, and where the sister missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint were caught in some of this type of death trap. Violence against women is entertainment. Normalizing that. Normalizing BDS and 50 Shades of Grey at the MTC. 50 Shades of Grey in orbit with Battlestar Galactica. That's not a good direction. And think of that in terms of Supergirl, Bizarro Supergirl, drunk, no point to existence, just going from one party to the other. That's not good. I have to say the episode ended right. So yeah, I was wrong about the Inquisitrix Dominatrix thing going on. Had Adama speak truth to power. So the episode ended right. So it'll keep me going. Watch the next one. But yeah, it's interesting, these things thrown in approaches towards women, sex, violence, beating up on heretics. Yeah, that's having an effect upon you. Half an hour at halfway point. Culture comment tied with this is that we're seeing a lot of big budget bad movies coming out. You have these studios with solid properties. Star Wars, Star Trek, MCU, DCU, Doctor Who, but they're producing garbage. And it's really, a lot of it's just bad writing, like you pointed out with the Battlestar Galactica, just the captain and the XO off the bridge at the same time. You'd never do anything like that. Apparently the Supergirl is just, the entire thing's bad. It's just, ugh. Part of it has to do with what are called sequels in story writing. Now, pay attention to this. That's a sequel's a logical consequence. You have an event happen, and then something else happens. And is there a logical collection, or is this just a bunch of note cards? You have a stack of these little note cards. Hey, here's a free commercial. So you have like a lot of scenes written on it. You just shuffle them together like a deck of playing cards and just start arranging them, but there's just no sense or no logical cohesion to it. So there's a book called The Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight Swain. Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight Swain. He talks about it. If you read the Lester Dent formula for writing, does everything happen logically? He just keeps asking, okay, is there a logical connection? Does this make any sense? Or just throwing a bunch of random events together. And it's similar to the South Park. Now, I don't watch it. They make fun of my faith. They have free speech. So I'll let them talk. But they did this presentation where they talked about what are called sequels. What it is, they do a story map, okay, the 3 acts, and you put the beats in, okay, what's going on, what happens here. They'll so okay, in this scene this happens, that's what a beat is. This scene this happens, and you have this and this. Okay, they sneak out the Millennium Falcon. They have R2D2 C3PO, tells them where they split up. Okay, Ben Kenobi shuts off the tractor beam, runs into Darth Vader. They get the princess. They jump into the garbage disposal, get out of the garbage disposal. So you have those series of events in Star Wars. What they said is, if the words "and then" fall between any of those beats, and that uses the this word I don't use on this podcast. It begins with the letter F, and I don't use it on this. Family friendly. Stone told the class, you got something pretty boring. Instead, every beat of the story must be connected by the words "therefore" or "but." There needs to be causation between each beat. It's the difference between a great story and a series of scenes lazily strung together. As a map at each episode, South Park's creators literally write "therefore" or "but" between each scenes. This normalizes garbage, bad writing, and so you have this generation of people growing up who think this is how you write stuff. And so it's a bit like a mental cancer or a cultural cancer. You get one corrupted gene, you have all these movies that are written badly, then they reproduce, and then the up-and-coming writers see it, and they think this is how you're supposed to write it, and it's not. So what do you do to stop this artistic cancer? Well, you read the classics. The classics are classics for a reason. Learn how to read Shakespearean English, maybe take a class in Middle English if that helps you out. Map out Shakespeare's story ideas. Watch Star Trek, the original series, and The Next Generation. Babylon 5, the entire series was mapped out beforehand. Not just a episode arc, not just a season arc, but the entire 5-year mission. The 5 years of Babylon 5 was mapped out beforehand. And so everything integrates perfectly. For fantasy, J.R.R. Tolkien, Ursula Le Guin, Orson Scott Card, and Brandon Sanderson are very good at this. Jim Butcher, who writes the Dresden Files, has this live journal where he talked about some of the techniques of writing. Now, why he hasn't published this in book form eludes me. It'd be very helpful for him to do it, polish it up, and sell it. But if you track it down, it's jimbutcherlivejournal.com, where he lists out how he writes a story and how he does a story arc, and then you have okay, how the scenes go and how the scenes work. Now, of course, in the process of writing, sometimes things change, things take on a life of their own, and so you abandon it. But at least it's a starting point. I actually do it in my. This is how I do it. So this is J. Michael Straczynski wrote a book on writing, film, and for radio, and he has a version of the Lester Dent map in there. But so you go here. This is the climax of the middle. This would be the third act here, first act, the second act, and then you have the third act here. So on a TV show, it's every 15 minutes you're hitting a quadrant. In a movie, it's every half hour. And I'm serious, you get a movie, and you watch it on your computer, and you get the time down. And you really, it's like with Indiana Jones or with Wizard of Oz. You sit there, just watch till hit half an hour, just pay attention to what's going on with the story. And an hour into the movie, what changes? For example, Star Wars, that's when Luke picks up the sword, figuratively speaking, says, okay, I want to be trained like a Jedi. That changes the whole direction of the movie. And that's what you do is with it at the hour mark. Things rearrange themselves, and it's good writing. So 36 minutes. Life's some pointers. Here's some bullet points, stuff you've already heard, but maybe helpful to you. Smaller is better. Focus goals with incremental steps is more effective than large goals. Always think ahead. Have a plan where you're thinking weeks ahead. If you're going to law school, have somewhere like three pages for the 3 years of law school. Okay, where you at? Where you need? Okay, what's your game plan? When are you doing your job hunting? How are you networking it? Or same thing with college. 4 years of college. Ask for help. When you do that, showing your initiative and ask for advice. Direction. The last thing is be discerning on your advice. When I was in high school, we had one of the high counselors talk about I think he had a PhD. He said, "Oh yeah, well, when you get to a higher degree, you essentially need math. You need math, and that's true. But in this age of chatbots, that's not as important as it needs to be. For someone in history, it's languages, studying different languages, learning the ability to understand different languages and to read that, not more so than statistics." So be discerning. It was helpful. I don't fault him, but it was a little bit off for me. E-devotional. Have I mentioned that we have 1 week left for America 250? So in 8 days, it will be July 5th, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is holding a fast. And then let me read it. It says, all invited to participate in a unified fast to express gratitude for religious liberty, and to pray that it would be strengthened throughout the world. Gratitude. Now when you watch Bizarro Supergirl, is there any gratitude? Or is it just more debauchery? Gratitude. Maybe that's the difference between a good Supergirl and a bad Supergirl movie is gratitude. But praying for religious liberty. It's being constricted for various reasons. Equating all faith with Islamic terrorism, homophobia, discrimination against women, people operating under the French Revolution model, liberty, equality, fraternity. Well, if you have a God, they don't necessarily have equality because a God's above everyone else. You need to be inclusive. And what happens is you can start creating churches unto yourself, not unto God, but a church unto yourself, which is what the Book of Mormon talks about. Expressing gratitude. There is a higher power. It's God. He loves you. He cares about you. He sent his son to die for you. And that's why you need religious freedom, to access the power of Jesus Christ's atonement and to live the gospel, to follow the doctrine of Christ, to make these covenants. Think about Bizarro Supergirl, and here the family proclamation. Mothers are primarily responsible for the nurture of their children, but you can't do that when you're drunk, club hopping, and all you do is care about your dog instead of children, instead of being a sane human being. Well, that's the passing scene with the eyes of faith. I promise you I am going to go to the doctor for my cough.